In the big story, the BBC's John Simpson issues a cringeworthy and embarrassing statement which many people feel praises the murderous dictator President Assad. Another own goal for our national state broadcaster. I'll bring reaction. And security guards at last say enough is enough with shoplifters. In this case, a group who are thought to be part of a sophisticated migrant gang. I'll be joined by a man who's been investigating the sheer scale of criminality that these gangs are responsible for. And in an hour's time, in My Take at 10, this weekend's encounter between Prince William and Donald Trump is proof, if you needed it, of the extraordinary soft diplomatic power of our monarchy. So, could the Prince of Wales single-handedly save the special relationship? I'll have the answer in a special Take at 10. You won't want to miss it. So, 2 hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. Tonight's top pundits, we have the head of the communications at Popular Conservatism, Annunziata Rees-Mogg. We've got a peer of the realm and former advisor to Boris Johnson, Lord Coolvere Ranger, and former top Labour special advisor, Paul Richards. Lots to get through. My solution to immigration straight after the news headlines and Sophia Wensler.
Mark, thank you. Good evening. It's just gone 9 o'clock. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is in Moscow with his family and has been granted asylum on humanitarian grounds. That's according to Russian state media. It comes as people are emptying the streets as rebel forces impose a curfew in Damascus after taking control of the capital, marking a dramatic fall in Assad's regime and forcing him to flee. US President Joe Biden has called it a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future. Here in the UK, around 100 Syrians have arrived at Piccadilly Circus in London to celebrate the fall of the Assad regime. Meanwhile, the Foreign Office has been evacuating British nationals ahead of the offensive, though exact numbers remain unclear. And the Prime Minister says the UK welcomes the fall of Assad's barbaric regime.
I welcome the fact that Assad has gone. The Syrian people had to put up with his brutal regime for far, far too long. We're talking to regional allies. It's very important now that there's a political settlement, a political way forward. And it's very, very important that we emphasise that civilians and minorities must be protected in this process. But very, very pleased that Assad has fallen.
In other news now, strong winds are hammering the UK just days after Storm Dara left 2 men dead and thousands without power. A yellow weather warning is in place with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour, threatening more blackouts and travel chaos. Tens of thousands of people are facing a second night without power after the widespread disruption caused by the storm. Flooding fears are rising too, with over 200 alerts issued across England, Wales and Scotland. Now, police in New York have released new images in the hunt for the gunman who shot dead United Healthcare Chief Executive Brian Thompson in what's believed to have been a targeted assassination. The suspect, seen wearing a hood and a face mask, fled on a bike after the killing, leaving behind a backpack containing a Monopoly board and a designer jacket. Investigators are also examining bullet casings marked with words deny, defend and depose, potentially linking the attack to critics of private health insurance. The FBI has put up a $50,000 reward as the killer is thought to have escaped the state, possibly boarding a bus to Atlanta. New York Mayor Eric Adams insists the net is tightening, with cutting-edge facial recognition tech leading the chase. And back in the UK, the Prince of Wales has been helping serve Christmas lunch at a homeless shelter run by the charity that he was introduced to by his mother. William wore one of the Passage charity's aprons as he joined the long line of volunteers serving food while chatting with attendees. He first visited the London-based homelessness charity more than 30 years ago with his late mother, Diana, the Princess of Wales. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Mark.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Why the meltdown in Syria matters to you and me, plus why and how Prince William is going to save the special relationship. That is a special take at 10. Lots to come, a busy 2 hours, but we start with a very important big opinion. Good evening. As President Assad's regime falls and chaos ensues in this war-torn country, there is once again talk of the mass migration of Syrians, which has proved devastating for Europe over the last decade. It cannot be repeated. Following the eye-watering figure of 1.7 million people having entered Britain over the last 2 years alone, with global pressure for us to accept many more in this increasingly turbulent world, many people are saying enough is enough. So why does immigration matter? And why are current numbers such a problem? Is it born out of suspicion or hatred of those who come to these islands? Is it born out of prejudice? Is it a xenophobic public brainwashed by so-called right-wing media and so-called populist politicians? No, it is common sense. Millions of people around the country are struggling to get GP appointments, school places for their kids, and a roof over their heads. Unlike the liberal leftist elite who champion open borders, it's ordinary people who are paying the price for this wild population experiment that no one voted for. But it's more than just the practicalities: housing, the welfare bill, integration. It is a growing feeling among the people that the country they love no longer belongs to them, as the makeup of our towns and cities changes at unprecedented speed, and with it, imported competition for resources. When did the idea of having rigorous borders become so controversial? Because, of course, the control of borders is an idea as ancient and as noble as the nation-state itself. Political geography is defined by territorial boundaries, and the integrity of those boundaries is the founding principle of a coherent and successful society. What's the point in having borders at all if you don't police them? Now, Britain has always been a diverse set of islands. We've been invaded by all and sundry, from the Romans to the Vikings to the Normans and beyond. We've always been an outward-looking country. Britain has always had a global mindset, most notably during the British Empire, when we controlled a quarter of the globe. And, by the way, where we did far more good than bad, let me tell you, which the legacy of the Commonwealth abundantly proves. Meanwhile, our economy has always benefited from talented and skilled people coming into the UK, to start businesses, to create art, to work in the NHS, to fight in our armed forces, to teach in our schools, to police our streets, to care for our elderly. I myself am the son of Irish immigrants, and proudly so. What about the Sunak family, who came from East Africa to the UK in the 1960s? And their son, Rishi, wound up running the country for 18 months. Personally, I think he did a brilliant job, and I'd have him back in a flash. But hey, it's all about opinions, isn't it? Our society benefits from an array of talents and a nation made up of every conceivable religion, race, creed, colour, you name it. Britain is a global beacon of integration. Show me a nation less racist and a nation more open, tolerant and welcoming than the UK. But that goodwill is being tested, and this glorious British project faces mortal peril as politicians like open borders fanboy Boris Johnson, asleep at the wheel, have allowed the delicate alchemy of incomers and outgoers to be thrown gravely out of kilter. Too much immigration is devastating. It creates a low-trust society, and ghettoised communities living parallel lives. You've got British citizens not speaking the language, not embracing the culture, and not subscribing to British values of tolerance, fair play, effort, duty, hard work, good humour and decency. Those appalling so-called peace marches, with their implied support for Hamas terror, being the perfect example. Sensible immigration is of huge value, but mass uncontrolled immigration is the theft of a nation from its own people. And those people want their country back. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. How do we solve the immigration problem? Let's get the views first up of tonight's top pundits. The head of communications at Popular Conservatism, a very good friend of mine, Annunciata Rees-Mogg. We also have peer and former Boris Johnson advisor, which is awkward because I've just been rude about him, Coolbeer Ranger, Lord Ranger, and another pal of mine as well. One of the most respected figures within the Labour movement, former top Labour advisor, Paul Richards. Annunciata, how are you this evening?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well. Britain has thrived and prospered from immigration, but it's about the level, isn't it?
It's about the level, and it's about who you're encouraging or allowing to come in. And as things stand, the net cost to the economy of having this level of immigration, of unskilled, unqualified people, is a huge drain on the economy. And by bringing more people in, you're just spreading the resources more thinly, and everyone ends up worse off.
And is there an issue about the goodwill and generosity of the British people being exploited, and that could turn?
I fear it could, and I think we are a very welcoming country, and we do love welcoming people, and we've just been looking at the situation in Syria, where I think Assad killed over 500,000 people. There are 14 million people displaced from their homes because of his war and his regime. And the British people didn't mind taking in around 40,000 because they were in genuine dire need. The problem is that our system is being completely abused for those who want to come purely for economic gain, and by doing that, they're draining the economy for the rest of us.
Coolbeer, something's got to change, hasn't it?
It does, but I think we need to look back to go forward. You know, Annunciata's mentioned a lot of things here. Immigration, a big blob sitting there that we need to deal with. But immigration has been on a journey itself over the decades. You know, every wave of immigration, you mentioned your parents and ancestors, the Irish immigrants, the West Indies, the East, African Indians, Uganda, etc., etc. Each wave came in and there was resistance. There was political challenge, there was cultural upheaval, and the country's been through that. We've come out a better nation, a better Britain, because of that change and the struggles we went through. What we now have is very much an economic conversation around the population of Britain, because we all know there's that pyramid where it has changed, where we have much more of an inverted pyramid of older people in our economy and the younger people that can't drive it. So we need immigration as a force for economic growth, but we also need immigration to service our hospitals, adult social care, all kinds of different public services. And the question is, how do we get the right sensible immigration to manage that? And I think it has been abused. Our system has been abused, but then layer upon that the challenge in Annunciata that you've mentioned, things like Syria that cause a mass of humanity to move, which, by the way, the only reason I'm here is because of partition in India in 45, which caused 10 million people to move, biggest mass movement of humanity. These things cause asylum, a need for people with desperate circumstances to find places to live. All of these things are part of this big blob that we call the immigration challenge that we need to deal with.
Absolutely. Our population is ageing. But we can't run our economy as though it's a Ponzi scheme. You can't just keep bringing in at the bottom to hope that you can support the top. It doesn't work like that.
And we have over 1 million young people not active in the economy of working age.
We do, and we have incredibly anti-family policies generally.
Yeah.
We should be encouraging people to have children. Of course, we don't want an ever-ageing population. But we shouldn't be trying to always do this short-term sticking plaster of bringing in people that we haven't produced ourselves. We should do our own training, we should have our own children.
I stood on the Michael Howard manifesto in 2005 of controlled immigration, where still the Conservative Party was seen as being racist for asking for controlled immigration. That conversation has moved on, because what we do need is the right immigration, and that's what Boris Johnson was looking at when we were looking at a point system, looking at the skills the economy needs. Now it's a more level of sophistication. But as I say, we have to deal with the asylum side, the illegal immigration side, and yes, the abuses as well, and we must get better at controlling that over time.
Paul Richards, as you council for some time there, what are your thoughts on this?
This will do Culver no good at all in Tory club, but I completely agree with everything he's just said. I think at every stage of immigration, going all the way back to the Huguenots, and then the Jews and the Irish and the Windrush generation, there's been this same moral outrage of these people coming in, speaking a funny language with funny food like fish and chips.
Well, there's no problem if you speak a different language when you don't learn British.
And you know, all these signs in Hebrew and Yiddish around the East End, it's a disgrace. And we had the Aliens Act in 1906 to stop them from coming, etc. In every generation, there's been the same conversation. And just like you say, we've got over it, people have assimilated, we've got on with it, and it's been a benefit to our culture and to our economy.
Sure, and I totally
and that is the story.
We all agree on that.
From the Dolans and everyone else.
Now, I hate to use the G word, but I think this is gaslighting of my viewers and listeners who are concerned about the level of immigration.
Can I address that point? Can I address that point directly? Because I think the reason why people are concerned about immigration is because of the changes in our economy, which are dislocating people from traditional jobs, different communities. You know, the world is changing because of technology so fast. So who do you blame for all this change? Immigrants.
Well, wait a minute.
And they're not to blame.
Rayner saying she's going to build 1.5 million houses. Well, 1.7 million people entered the UK in the last 2 years.
Who's going to build the houses? Who's going to build the houses? We need immigrants to do those kind of jobs in the first place. The health service would fall over without immigrants, and not just.
Point that we're talking about numbers we've never seen in our history. That's the point. It's not the issue of immigration; it's the scale.
No,
of it.
because
Do you not acknowledge that.
No, I don't, because the population has always grown from the Romans onwards, and that's good for us.
Is this gaslighting?
I think it is. I think that the British people completely see through this and know that there is a problem. Too many people are coming. We're a crowded island. We're
not a crowded island at all.
Housing, GP places, schools, you name it. Here's the thing, Paul. Here's a question for you, because I think this is a colossal opportunity for Sir Keir Starmer. You want him to be in power for 10 years. I think the way he achieves that, right? I think the way he achieves that is to get legal net migration down to 100,000 by the end of this Parliament. If he does that, I think he remains Prime Minister, should he do it.
I think you have to have robust borders, and you have to kick out the illegals, and you have to do all of that. But no, I don't think you have a number on it, because how can you look into people's souls and say whether they're going to move here or not? We don't know that, do we?
Right, I'm going to get in big trouble with the producer, James, so we better crack on, but we'll come back to that. Don't forget, we've got the papers at 10:30, which have lots of issues around immigration featuring on the front pages. But first, the Great British Giveaway, and your chance to become our biggest ever winner with an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. A huge sum of money that could make your new year your best year ever. Here are the details.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
What are you waiting for? You really could be our biggest winner so far. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, I think you'll agree, my panel are coming in hot tonight. Well, they return at 10 o'clock for my Take at 10. It's a very special one about how Prince William is going to save the special relationship. But next up in the big story, the BBC's John Simpson issues a cringeworthy and embarrassing statement which many feel praises the murderous dictator President Assad, who has, of course, just fallen. Another own goal for our national state broadcaster. I'll bring reaction next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel. recruiters are warning that if you're not tech savvy, you could be missing out with your CV failing to make it through an AI-powered sifting process. So we've gone from sort of computer says no HR people ticking boxes to AI, right? Is that right?
Yes, well, this applies once you're in the job as well, as a recent report revealed that employees expect AI will manage an average of a third of their tasks within the next 12 months. Well, joining us now to discuss this is Cosmo Curry, founder of Van Kaizen, a leading company in technology recruitment.
Morning, Cosmo.
Morning.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Ben.
Well,
Hi.
yeah, thank you for joining us. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because AI is, of course, on the rise and now in the workplace and in universities and things. Another article came to mind. There was a student recently, I think it was in the news just the other day, that got in trouble for using AI. So there's, you know, for exam purposes and essays. So there's lots of different ways that it can be a good thing and a bad thing. But you're, of course, here to talk about the ways in which AI is a good thing within the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, AI is here to stay, for sure. And we're seeing this rise of people using it in such a clever format. And the other side of it is also we're seeing people who are using it and during the process of that, they are losing their character. We're losing the actual insight into the individual behind that. And so we've kind of got this kind of mix. I think AI is phenomenal when you're looking at it from a point of view of optimization, point of view of speed, getting results. But I think we have to remember that, you know, the fundamental of recruitment is people. And we cannot substitute the people, the personal aspect, by replacing that with AI.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Is immigration too high? That was the topic of my big opinion. Well, Jude, who is a GB News member. Good evening, Jude. How are you? Hey, Jude. God, I bet you heard that before. Jude says, reasonable levels of immigration where people come with skills we need is one thing. However, uncontrolled mass immigration is ruining the fabric of British society. We cannot possibly take everyone that wants to come here. We are a small island and we are full, says Jude. OK, keep those opinions coming. Time now for the big story. And the BBC's John Simpson issues a cringeworthy and embarrassing statement which many feels praises the murderous dictator President Assad of course, Syria, who has since fallen. Another own goal from our national state broadcaster. Let's have a look at the tweet he sent. It's pretty lively stuff. He said, Bashar al-Assad has done many evil things, but he's weak rather than wicked. That's right, he describes him as weak rather than wicked. He goes on, his family members, Iran and especially Russia, told him what to do, and he feebly did it. In person, I found him meek and anxious to please, the reverse of the traditional dictator. Well, in a move that will bring huge embarrassment to the BBC, fact-checkers at X, the social media platform, felt the need to correct John Simpson by saying Bashar al-Assad oversaw the systematic torture and murder of hundreds of thousands of Syrian civilians, including through the use of torture, prisons and chemical weapon attacks on his own people. Well, folks, it is pretty extraordinary. Following allegations of bias in the BBC's reporting of the Gaza conflict, This looks to be another unwanted headline for our national state broadcaster. Let's get reaction and more on why these events in Syria matter to you and me. I'm delighted to welcome the renowned historian Martin Whittock. Martin, really good to see you again. Your reaction to John Simpson's ex-post?
Well, the simple reality is that Bashar al-Assad was an extraordinarily brutal and cruel dictator. In 2011, he brutally crushed a peaceful pro-democracy uprising. It caused a devastating civil war, and somewhere in the region of at least 500,000 people have been killed in that time, many in the most horrendous ways, and perhaps 12 million others, some think as high as 14 million, have been forced to flee. What we are seeing now is the fall of an appalling dictatorship, utterly appalling. Now, what comes next, which we might talk about in a moment, gives cause for concern too, and lots of big questions. But that a brutal and cruel dictator has fallen is beyond question.
Did John Simpson get the tone wrong in that post?
I think he did. I think he was trying to give the impression that Assad was, in a sense, out of his depth, unable to respond to the kind of pressures that he was under pressure from his allies, Iran and Russia. But the danger in saying this kind of thing is it kind of gives the impression that somebody is less culpable, that they don't have agency, that they don't make decisions. And Bashar al-Assad has made decisions. He has had agency, and he has caused extraordinary damage and suffering to huge numbers of people. And I think we mustn't do anything that in any way dilutes.
Now, let me tell you that Martin Whittock has just broken up there. I think it's really important what he's had to say, because this is John Simpson, OK? He is one of the key faces of the BBC News operation. He's been in broadcasting for decades. Now, this is a murderous dictator, as you've heard, responsible for the deaths of thousands of his own, hundreds of thousands of his own people. And yet you get this rather loving sort of hagiography of this monstrous individual from someone that ought to know better. I think it demonstrates just how out of touch some of these BBC News journalists are. I'm delighted to say that Martin is back. Now, Martin, why does the collapse of the Assad regime matter to my viewers and listeners?
Right, it raises some real questions. First of all, what does this group, the group that's now come to power, it seems, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, what does it stand for? Is it going to bring more freedoms, or is it going to bring just a simply different kind of ideologically driven repression? And if that's the case, will it lead to the return of millions of displaced Syrians, or will it cause a new exodus? What's going to be next for Iran? Its proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, Assad, now weakened or gone. Will it try to accelerate its nuclear program in response to defend itself? That is a really dangerous thing. How will Israel respond? Israeli military units have already occupied positions on the Golan Heights, previously held by the Syrian army since the 1974 ceasefire agreement. Will they now take action to stop Syrian weapons facilities falling into the hands of HTS? Does this weaken Russia or free Russian assets to use elsewhere? These things do matter because they affect the stability of the Middle East, they affect oil prices, they affect stability, they affect the world economy, they affect the whole business of migration and exodus from the Middle East. Yes, it matters. It might seem a long way away, but it has repercussions very close to home.
Indeed, it looks to be, in principle, bad news for Russia, who backed the Assad regime. There are some reports that Assad is now in Russia with his family, and no doubt a few million in the bank and a couple of sports cars. It doesn't look to be good for Iran either. But as you say, the folks taking over are a gang of bandits, aren't they? They're Islamist extremists. So you have to worry about the wider stability of the region.
Well, yes, I mean, basically, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, are still officially prescribed as a terrorist group. Now, they're saying they're not going to take action outside the borders of Syria. They're making noises about protecting the rights of minorities. But we know that where they have been in power, they have been a very ruthless, very imposing Islamist group. So there are real questions as to whether a dictator has fallen to be replaced by another dictatorial regime. And that's the problem. We only have to remember how the Taliban came to power after a comparable collapse, if you remember, of the Afghan army very rapidly, saying things will be a bit different this time. And we've seen that has not been the case in Afghanistan, a really ruthless Islamist regime now. Now, we don't want that to be happening in Syria, because otherwise we'll see even more people fleeing from Syria.
Most definitely. Martin, I've only got a couple of seconds. President-elect Donald Trump has a full inbox, doesn't he? Can he fix this?
I don't think he can fix this, but he may well be in a position to put a lot of pressure on Iran to not make it worse.
Martin, what a treat to have you on the show. Your wisdom and knowledge, the renowned historian Martin Whittock, who no doubt will return on this topic in the near future. Next up, security guards say enough is enough to shoplifters. And look at this particular case here. A group thought to be part of a sophisticated migrant gang. It's blighting Britain's cities and across Europe. I'll be joined by a man who's been investigating the sheer level of criminality that these organised gangs are responsible for. That's next.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After an unsettled weekend, it is still going to be windy in the south, clearer skies overnight in the north before higher pressure builds into the new week. So we still do have a squeeze in the isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds for the rest of today and into tomorrow, but higher pressure towards the north. So a cloudy picture across much of England and Wales through Monday, with brisk winds still, especially along the south coast, with some showers most frequent in the southeast. Drier across Northern Ireland and Scotland, but it will be a cold start to the day with a touch of frost in places. But that does mean a bright start across much of Scotland, with plenty of winter sunshine to start the day, perhaps even with some freezing fog patches around that may be slow to lift. Across Northern Ireland, plenty of blue sky once again, but there will be a touch of frost too, so a cold start out there. Some glimmers of sunshine, especially across western areas of England and Wales, but often quite cloudy as we go through the afternoon. So there is going to be a lot of cloud around and some outbreaks of rain, especially across the south and east and across the English Channel too. But there will be some breaks in the cloud, the best of the sunshine once again across Northern Ireland and Scotland. It will be cold here though, with temperatures struggling here at around 5 or 6 degrees, but across the south holding up at around 8 or 9 degrees. So it's going to be another cold start across Northern Ireland and Scotland as we start Tuesday morning with a widespread frost. A lot of cloud across much of England and Wales. Again, thick enough just for some patchy rain and drizzle at times, but for most of us it's largely dry, and as we go through the week, higher pressure remains, but it'll be still largely cloudy with some overnight frost and fog. Bye-bye.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Now, why Prince William is going to save the special relationship with the US in a Take at 10 special. You won't want to miss it. That's just in 25 minutes' time. Event TV, let me tell you. But first, footage has emerged of security guards at the famous central London department store Fortnum and Mason apprehending shoplifters who are suspected of being part of a sophisticated migrant crime gang. Take a look. Well, those are distressing pictures. What is happening to law and order in this country? Well, the man who shot that footage is the fearless reporter, writer and broadcaster Andy Ngo, who joins me now. Andy, really good to see you.
Thank you.
You were in central London. Fortnum & Mason is a very upmarket department store, isn't it? You were going about your day, and then what happened?
I was on Jermyn Street after doing some shopping, and I heard...
Famous for posh shirts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I heard screams ring around, and immediately I just thought, something's happening, get out my phone. I used to do a lot of riot and protest coverage in America.
Including, of course, the BLM riots.
Yes, in Portland, Oregon, and elsewhere. And I saw security trying to apprehend a group of women. And immediately what I observed is that it looked like the reactions of the women, that they were quite prepared to respond the way they did, which is screaming, rolling around on the ground, being very, very theatrical and getting a lot of attentions. The department store actually had enough resources to eventually get the group of suspects, which unfortunately among them included a teenage girl and a very young child, to detain them. I think if it was any other business, small business, there's no way they could have been able to detain them. In America, what I've seen with these targeted thefts is that there would be smash and grabs, and oftentimes you see in these videos that go viral, security is right there, and they just let them go because there's just too much that can happen to try to detain them.
You can't, excuse me, I've just got something in my throat. You can't ask somebody that's on £11 an hour to put his life on the line.
Yes, that's another thing too. I think I was surprised to see that there is business here that does take alleged theft seriously.
Yeah.
That's not the case in the United States, unfortunately.
No, indeed. What do we know about this sort of crime? I mean, could it be a sophisticated gang that's organising this shoplifting?
So I've reached out to the Metropolitan Police, and they just let me know that 2 adult women and a juvenile adolescent were arrested on suspicion of theft. They did not comment when I asked if what is their nationality or immigration status. I believe that the suspects, they appeared to come from a foreign origin. And so police have not provided me details of a larger organized element, but at least within that group that night, they looked coordinated between one another, and in terms of theatrics and all that, to try to help one another escape.
Yes, I mean, we don't know about the details of this case, but I mean, in a lot of situations regarding shoplifting, it's often an industry, isn't it? What are the methods of gangs like that? How do they work?
So I know best about how this works in the United States, for example, that there would be theft rings where groups would be very organized in how they coordinate people who go in and out, those who keep an eye out, those who keep an eye out for when law enforcement comes, and then the merchandise is sold on online marketplaces where it's much more difficult to track. And I suspect, based on, one of the things that I saw in the replies in the video that I recorded that went really viral is that people seem surprised that there was a security response because a lot of people have become kind of resigned that theft and petty crime is just part and parcel of life in Britain today in cities.
Well, indeed. Why have Western societies begun to tolerate crimes like shoplifting? Because we've seen it in America, haven't we? Branches of the Apple store with iPads being ripped off the stand and just bundled into someone's pocket.
In the United States, there's an ideological element to the excusing of looting and theft and shoplifting, particularly from the left. With the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement and viral videos of law enforcement being called on those who have been suspected of stealing and such, and then there's some incident that goes viral, a narrative and a perspective that's been put out by ideologues is that life matters more than property. So they use that as a slogan to say, basically, if robberies or thefts are happening, so be it. We don't want to get law enforcement involved because they might get hurt, the suspects might get hurt and or killed possibly, and that contributes to systemic racism.
I mean, that sounds a bit like communism to me.
one could view it that way.
It's going in that direction. What's happening in the West? I mean, what's happened to our values? What's happened to the rule of law? Why are things going so wrong?
Well, there's a lot of disorder in society right now, and I think with law, well, in my view, in this country, a lot of law enforcement resources are spent focused on speech-related things online, things that...
Something you said on Facebook or X.
Yes, in investigations that in people getting detained or questioned, that takes up resources away from all these other crimes that are actually happening.
Law enforcement, but also, I mean, is it, you know, the UK, America, is it sort of progressive leftism? This is terrible sort of woke ideology, which has affected, you know, our public institutions and even corporations now. Is that what's going on?
That's part of it, in my opinion. I think you can see it in your law enforcement agencies, that there is perhaps an argument that there's an ideological capture.
Yeah. Will we ever reclaim sort of Western values and Western, you know, rule of law and all the rest of it, you know, or is it gone forever now? Have we got to get used to people just, you know, shoplifting and getting away with it and public disorder? Is this the shape of things to come?
I think if people continue to view it as something that's normalized, I'll point to America as like an example of what you don't want to go down, then people would just accept it as life.
You can give us a sense of how bad things are in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco. I mean, tell me about San Francisco, which used to be one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Now what goes on there?
Well, on their some of the luxury high streets in San Francisco and Los Angeles, the luxury designer brands are the ones that are being brazenly targeted in the middle of the day. A car's waiting already on the street, a group comes out, smashes and grabs, and gets in the vehicle and leaves, and they get away with it.
Yeah, and I mean, aren't people camping on the street, defecating on the pavement, open drug abuse?
That is an unfortunate reality to many Democrat-run cities in America.
Crumbs. Well, listen, Andy, more power to you, because the work you do as a citizen journalist and broadcaster is critical. How can people follow you online and find out more about your work?
My X account is at Mr. Andy NGO.
All right, well, listen, keep up the good work and look forward to catching up soon. There we are. A sobering but important conversation, I think you agree. Thank you to Andy. No. Now, in a statement provided to GB News by the Met Police today, they told us at around 1500 hours on Wednesday, the 4th of December, police were called to a shop in Piccadilly. Security staff had detained 2 women and a teenage girl who had allegedly concealed perfume bottles whilst within the store before leaving and making no attempt to pay. The group tried to make off and dispose of the items when challenged. Security staff restrained them and escorted them back into the store to await the arrival of the police. All 3 were arrested on suspicion of theft and taken into police custody. The following day, they were charged with theft from a shop and bailed to attend court next month. We also contacted Fortnum & Mason for comment, but as of yet, they are yet to respond. We asked for a comment and for some jam and Earl Grey tea bags. OK, folks, during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we're hearing from church ministers across the country. Every day, they have a special message for you to celebrate the festive season.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 8.
Advent is a time of waiting in anticipation to celebrate an extraordinary event that took place just over 2,000 years ago. Waiting in anticipation is something we do often in life. Maybe we're waiting to enjoy the holiday we've been saving up for, or waiting for that email to come through telling us we've been successful in our job application, or waiting to open up the Christmas presents come Christmas Day. The stronger our wanting and longing, the greater the intensity of our anticipating and waiting. Which raises a question: do you know what you most want and long for? In a world full of marketing and social media influencers, shaping our every desire and telling us what we should have, what we need to have, and what we are to experience and how we are to live, do we know what we truly want? Have we lost the ability to know the deepest longings of our hearts? As we approach the celebration of Christmas, we're reminded that Jesus Christ came down to earth as God in the flesh. It reminds us that the human soul belongs to God and was created for God, to enjoy God now and forever when Jesus returns. This is Emmanuel, God with us.
Isn't that wonderful? Merry Christmas, one and all. I've got to say, I'm really loving those spiritual messages. Now, coming up, does this Labour government hate aspiration? I'll be asking my Mark Meets guest, the only BBC Apprentice winner to fire Lord Sugar. That's next.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's about Generation Z spending 6 hours a day online. Generation Z, which age group is that?
That's 16 to 24.
OK, great.
So, now, this could explain why there's 1 million young people aged between 16 and 24
not working.
in work.
Yeah.
And I did a TV show and we're talking about it, and the lefty person I was on with was making excuses for the fact that we've got 9 million people unemployed. And this woman, this mom, rang in and she was hilarious. And I thought she was going to have a go at me. She said, "Carol Malone." I thought, here we go, another one. And she goes, "You are absolutely right." She said, "I've just thrown my son out of the house, who's 24. She said, my husband and I," she said, "we worked all our lives, 2 jobs, to get him to college, to get him to a private school."
Yeah.
She said, "He hasn't worked a day."
No.
And his attitude was, "Why should I?" And you think, and she said he spends all day online.
On his phone.
That's all he's
because
doing.
we would have gone to get a job because we were bored. And the trouble is, Jonathan, the younger generation are never, ever bored because the algorithms keep them stimulated.
Well, the dopamine hits keep coming. I think it's actually a problem for all of us. Yeah. You know, now for anyone, if you just have a moment to yourself, a lot of people of all ages, what do we reach for? We reach for our phones, particularly for those. Obviously, if we're with a friend, we'll talk to them.
Your age group, you're not talking about...
Well, I know that. I've spoken to a lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s who also will just, you know, if they have a free month on the tube or whatever, they'll just look at their phone and read. And it's actually terrifying because on the iPhone every Monday it tells you how much time you spent on your phone the previous week, and it's
much for you?
On average per day?
Fair few hours. I mean, a lot of that will be work.
What's a ballpark? Oh, more than 5?
Occasionally 5. Yeah.
Well, better things to do. Spending 6 hours a day.
Do you never read a book?
Well, that'll be at night time.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
OK, folks, let me tell you a very special take at 10, how Prince William is going to save the special relationship. But first, Mark Meets. And tonight, a man on track to be Britain's richest BBC Apprentice show winner and the only contestant to have fired Lord Sugar. Joseph Valente, welcome to Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Tonight.
How are you?
Really good to see you. First of all, you were not born with a silver spoon in your mouth, were you?
No, absolutely not. No, I came from very humble beginnings, actually. My mum was a very hard worker growing up, and, you know, she has done a fantastic job. But
she had to hold down more than one job just to keep the bills paid?
Absolutely, yeah. She did a couple of jobs to keep our household going, and she did an incredible job.
And you, although we know you're as clever as anything, but you were expelled from school, weren't you?
Yeah, 14 and a half, yeah, unfortunately. But the education system, look, isn't for everybody. And I think entrepreneurs naturally are rule breakers. They don't like being told what to do, and I certainly didn't at 14 and a half years of age.
No, I mean, Jeremy Clarkson was expelled from school. Lord Sugar, your mate, left school at 14.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a prerequisite to success, is it?
No,
academic
not.
qualifications?
No, definitely not. But I think education's absolutely important. And I think when you are passionate about what you're learning about and you can see the outcome from the education that you lean in, but when you get sent to classes that you know you're no good at and then get graded on them to be told you're a failure, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
I never saw sense.
Did you always have an entrepreneurial bent? Was there something about you as a kid?
I was always an impatient child that wanted everything when I wanted it. So if I could go to my mum for money, I probably wouldn't have ever got the entrepreneurial streak. So if I didn't have money, I had to go out and find it. So I used to hustle on the playground, sell football stickers, find a way to make money, you know, just like any entrepreneurial kid does.
Well, indeed. And listen, you've gone on to run a very successful business. I mean, you're a serial entrepreneur, but the trademastermind.co.uk.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I set up the Trade Mastermind when I was 30 years of age, just before lockdown. And what we do at Trade Mastermind is teach tradespeople how to become great business people. Plumbers start plumbing businesses, electricians start electrical businesses, builders build houses. But no one has been teaching really the trades business community how to build a business until we came along. But as you know from my story, I spent my 20s building a national plumbing and heating company. And it was the education that I invested in along the way into my knowledge and personal development that allowed me to grow as an individual and build an 8-figure company.
Well, there you go. And it was reading Lord Sugar's autobiography that got you started.
Yeah.
That was the spark. We'll come to Lord Sugar in a second.
Yep.
Tell us about your latest project. It is the Entrepreneur's Shadow Government. What is that?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. So I've been watching what's been going on in America with Donald Trump winning the election and him appointing Elon Musk as the head of this government efficiency agency. And then when the budget recently came out in the UK
budget.
The entrepreneur community was extremely negative and very frustrated that British business is the backbone of the economy, and yet it's always us that they come to get more tax pounds. And then recently they came out with a £20 billion black hole. Now, no business owner wants to sacrifice their time, their money, take all the risk, make all the jobs, employ all the people, and then have some politicians in Parliament squandering it on whatever it is that they feel like.
Pay rises in the public sector.
Absolutely. And so I thought, you know what, I'm sick and tired of this. Why are there no entrepreneurs in government working with politicians to, number one, hold them accountable to what they're spending money on, and number two is actually helping them to solve problems, because we're natural-born problem solvers as entrepreneurs, and politicians, they may be good at it, but they're not naturally born to solve problems, and they're not very good at it, actually. I mean, year after year, we're going over the same old problems, and nobody seems to fix anything. And
well, I think it's a shame that we don't have entrepreneurs in Parliament in greater numbers. You've got a lot of career politicians,
absolutely,
people from the public sector, lawyers, that kind of stuff. But the wealth creators are the ones who generate the tax income for the NHS. And of course, you want companies employing people, not the state, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about making sure that the UK is retaining its top talent. You know, how many, I think the stats are ridiculous, I don't have them to hand, but many millionaires and 100 millionaires and billionaires, they're all leaving.
Well, 10,000 millionaires have left the UK this year, which is a record. And that's a lot of lost tax income and expertise.
Absolutely.
So that's it. So the deal is, it is Entrepreneur's Shadow Cabinet. And is that, can that be found online?
It's www.esg.co.uk, and it's a not-for-profit. We're currently building the board. We've got some invitations to Parliament already, and it's going to be a members' organisation, so people can go on and register if they're passionate about business.
Now, we need to get you back. I'm out of time, but Lord Sugar, you fired him. How did you take that?
Well, I think me and Lord Sugar had a love-hate relationship, and he was a great guy that gave me a big opportunity to change my life.
Yeah, well, that's a diplomatic answer. No wonder you've gone so far in business. Politician's answer indeed. Joseph Valente, thank you for joining us. More power to you. Is your mum still around, by the way?
She is, yeah. Hopefully she's watching this.
She must be so proud. She must be so proud.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah? I bet she's got a nice house now. I hope so, anyway. Listen, Joseph Valente, your mum did a good job. Let me tell you that we've got a special take at 10. Prince William is going to save the special relationship. I'll tell you how next.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar. sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After an unsettled weekend, it is still going to be windy in the south, clearer skies overnight in the north before higher pressure builds into the new week. So we still do have a squeeze in the isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds for the rest of today and into tomorrow, but higher pressure towards the north. So a cloudy picture across much of England and Wales through Monday, with brisk winds still, especially along the south coast, with some showers most frequent in the southeast. Drier across Northern Ireland and Scotland, but it will be a cold start to the day with a touch of frost in places. But that does mean a bright start across much of Scotland, with plenty of winter sunshine to start the day, perhaps even with some freezing fog patches around that may be slow to lift. Across Northern Ireland, plenty of blue sky once again, but there will be a touch of frost too, so a cold start out there. Some glimmers of sunshine, especially across western areas of England and Wales, but often quite cloudy as we go through the afternoon. So there is going to be a lot of cloud around and some outbreaks of rain, especially across the south and east and across the English Channel too. But there will be some breaks in the cloud, the best of the sunshine once again across Northern Ireland and Scotland. It will be cold here though, with temperatures struggling here at around 5 or 6 degrees, but across the south holding up at around 8 or 9 degrees. So it's going to be another cold start across Northern Ireland and Scotland as we start Tuesday morning with a widespread frost. A lot of cloud across much of England and Wales. Again, thick enough just for some patchy rain and drizzle at times, but for most of us it's largely dry, and as we go through the week, higher pressure remains, but it'll be still largely cloudy with some overnight frost and fog. Bye-bye.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect And then you throw me into the mix, and trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. It is 10 o'clock on television, on radio, online, and across the United Kingdom and the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In the Take at 10, this weekend's encounter between Prince William and Donald Trump is proof, if you needed it, of the extraordinary soft diplomatic power of our monarchy. So, could the remarkable Prince of Wales single-handedly save the special relationship? I have the answer in a special Take at 10 in just a moment. Developing tonight, as Suella Braverman's husband sensationally defects to Reform UK, is the former Conservative Home Secretary going to be next? If Braverman leaves, does that sink the Tory party forever? I'll be asking political icon Anne Widdecombe. Plus, tomorrow's papers with full pundit reaction this evening. Coming in hot, we have Head of Communications at Popular Conservatism, Annunziata Rees-Mogg, peer and former advisor to Boris Johnson, Lord Coulvier Ranger, and former top Labour Special Advisor, Paul Richards. So, a packed show, lots to get through. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, how he can save the special relationship. But first, the news, and someone I've got a special relationship with, a good friend of mine, Sophia Wensler.
Mark, thank you. Good evening. It's just gone 10 o'clock. These are your headlines from the GB newsroom. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is in Moscow with his family and has been granted asylum on humanitarian grounds. That's according to Russian state media. It comes as people are emptying the streets as rebel forces impose a curfew in Damascus after taking control of the capital, marking a dramatic fall in Assad's regime and forcing him to flee. US President Joe Biden has called it a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future. Here in the UK, around 100 Syrians have arrived at Piccadilly Circus in London to celebrate the fall of the Assad regime. Meanwhile, the Foreign Office has been evacuating British nationals ahead of the offensive, though exact numbers remain unclear. And the Prime Minister says the UK welcomes the fall of Assad's barbaric regime.
I welcome the fact that Assad has gone. The Syrian people had to put up with his brutal regime for far, far too long. We're talking to regional allies. It's very important now that there's a political settlement, a political way forward. And it's very, very important that we emphasise that civilians and minorities must be protected in this process. But very, very pleased that Assad has fallen.
In other news, strong winds are hammering the UK just days after Storm Dara left 2 men dead and thousands without power. A yellow weather warning is in place with gusts of up to 70 miles an hour, threatening more blackouts and travel chaos. Tens of thousands of people are facing a second night without power after the widespread disruption caused by the storm. Flooding fears are rising too, with over 200 alerts issued across England, Wales and Scotland. Now, thousands gathered for a march against anti-Semitism in London today. The route passed through Westminster and Whitehall, ending with a rally at Parliament Square. It follows a reported quadrupling of anti-Semitic hate crimes over the past year, making Jewish people the UK's most targeted minority faith group. The rise is linked to the Hamas attacks on Israel in October and the subsequent strikes on Gaza. And the Prince of Wales has met US President-elect Donald Trump during a ceremony to mark the reopening of Notre Dame in Paris 5 years after it was devastated by a fire. Prince William joined world leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, for the landmark event. Kensington Palace described the Prince's meeting with Trump as warm and friendly, with discussions focusing on the UK-US special relationship and global issues. Trump praised William as a good man doing a fantastic job and shared fond memories of the late Queen, which the Prince was said to appreciate deeply. President Macron, in his speech, called the restoration a lesson of fragility, humility and will. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Mark.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My thanks to the excellent Sophia Wensler, who returns in an hour's time. Well, coming up tonight, we've got tomorrow's front pages in the company of an elite panel. Plus, Suella Braverman's husband sensationally defects to Reform UK. Will she follow suit, and will that sink the Tories? I'll be asking politics icon Anne Widdecombe. Lots to get through, but first, my take at 10. Good evening. Cynical people know the price of everything and the value of nothing, which takes me to the British royal family, who joyless Republicans would happily replace with a clapped-out ex-politician, some kind of presidential figure like Tony Blair. Thanks, but no thanks. And there was no greater demonstration of the colossal soft diplomatic power of our monarchy than the encounter this weekend between President-elect Donald Trump and the next in line to the throne, Prince William, the Prince of Wales. There he was in Paris at the Élysée Palace. Slim, tall and elegant, Prince William did not look remotely out of place, rubbing shoulders with the French President Emmanuel Macron, Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, and the Donald, who I've got to say I thought looked rather fetching in his golden tie. William gave the flame-haired US president-elect a huge amount of respect, understanding that he was representing the interests of this country and meeting the soon-to-be leader of our greatest ally. But the respect was mutual. Donald Trump made a fuss of our future king, warmly greeting him, paying him close attention, patting his back and deploying warm body language, worlds apart from the unseemly arm wrestle witnessed between Trump and Emmanuel Macron at the same event. I'll be honest with you, I felt proud watching Prince William representing us on the world stage. Young, dynamic, handsome, stately, rocking a slightly Edwardian beard that makes him look like one of his ancestors. And like his father, the king, and his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, he is the very embodiment of British values, of British history and of British tradition. Many complained that Sir Keir Starmer was not present. Well, I think we dodged a bullet. If you look at these images of the Prince of Wales and Donald Trump having a bilateral, I suspect that William could have a bumper US trade deal signed, sealed and delivered before the weekend is out, unlike our Europhile Prime Minister, who I fear wants to take us back into the bosom of Brussels and the dying, sclerotic EU, which in my view would be a grave mistake. William's efforts over the weekend in Paris were all the more impressive given the year that he's had, with his estranged brother Harry still sending sniper fire over Windsor, with the shock cancer diagnosis of his beloved father Charles, and of course most devastatingly, the news that Princess Catherine, who, if Diana was the people's princess, she is the perfect princess, was discovered to be battling the disease too. So for the cost of a handful of pence a day, every British citizen gets a lot of bang for their buck. Because when Charles and Camilla, or when William and Catherine travel overseas, Princess Anne as well, Edward, it's always an event. It's always a story. Our frontline royals are box office. They have global reach, fermented over centuries of diplomacy, war, empire, trade and international affairs. It's therefore thrilling to see the next generation of royals remain as relevant, if not more so than ever. And that special relationship with the United States going forward is of critical importance. And it may just be that Donald Trump's affection for the UK, and in particular his affection for the royal family, he won't shut up about Queen Elizabeth, will heal the growing diplomatic rift between the Trump White House and our governing UK Labour Party. This is a Labour Party whose Foreign Secretary has effectively called Trump a neo-Nazi. This is a Labour Party which naively sent an army of operatives over to the States to campaign for the disastrous, permanently tipsy Kamala Harris, for whom it is always wine o'clock. And by the way, whilst he's not perfect, and I have concerns about his character and temperament, that's Donald Trump, isn't it great to see a US president on the world stage again that is dynamic, that has energy, whose brain actually works, who doesn't wander into a broom cupboard at the end of a speech? And how hilarious that even before he enters office, China is talking about closer cooperation with America, Hamas are talking about a peace deal in Gaza, Israel lay down arms against Hezbollah, and Zelensky backs Donald Trump's timetable for a swift end to the war in Ukraine. What will Donald Trump's critics say when he likely ends multiple conflicts across the globe, when he reboots the US economy, and when he brings to an end hated political correctness and so-called wokery? Like I've said before, despite his many flaws, ultimately, Trump's victory is ours too. Prince William acquitted himself brilliantly on the world stage this weekend. He did us all proud. Just think, one day he will be king too, which can only make you optimistic for the future of this country. And whilst politicians like Starmer come and go, this monarchy is here to stay. You see, form is temporary, but class is permanent. And Prince William has class unlimited. Your reaction, can Prince William save the special relationship? Were you impressed by his performance, his efforts in Paris this weekend? I thought he absolutely blew the doors off. gbnews.com/your say. Tonight's top pundits are in the house. Head of Communications at Popular Conservatism, Annunciata Rees-Mogg. Peer of the Realm and former Boris Johnson advisor Lord Coulvier Ranger. And former Labour Party Special Advisor, none other than Paul Richards. Paul, let me start with you. Top of the evening.
Hello.
That was an impressive bit of diplomacy from a young Prince William, don't you think?
I am, as you know, Mark, a bit of a monarchy sceptic, I would say, and I'm not altogether sure Donald Trump knew who he was meeting, to be absolutely honest. I mean, he shakes so many hands. He'll shake hands.
Exactly who William is.
He says you're doing a great job to everybody he meets. Let's face it. I don't think he knew what was going on particularly, but I don't.
He definitely knows who William is because he's about to deport his brother.
I do feel that. It's a bit alarming when people who are unelected going off to do this job on our behalf. I believe in democracy. We've got people on the streets of Syria now demanding democracy, and we need a bit more of that here too. And I don't think we should send the royals in to do the job that should be done by a politician.
Annunciata.
Keir hasn't wanted to meet Donald Trump, so we can't send in the politician.
He had a very good meeting. He has met Donald Trump. They had a very good dinner together.
Not since he's become president-elect.
Well, I think he will.
He didn't go to Notre Dame.
Well, is that true? Do we know whether Starmer decided not to go?
He said was not planning on seeing him before January, before his inauguration.
Well, not because of some rift between them, though, just because he doesn't want to do it.
To be fair to Keir Starmer, is it unreasonable to expect that he just jumps on a plane because, Trump's in town? That's not really how these bilateral negotiations
work. He's getting criticised for being abroad too often as well, isn't he?
As I understand it, he was invited to the Notre Dame.
Do you know, listen, you're close to Sir Keir Starmer. I mean, do you know whether he spurned an invitation?
I don't know if he spurned it or not, but he has been criticised for being abroad too much, so now he's staying home. People are criticising him for that. He can't win, Paul Black.
Do you think he should have gone, Paul?
What, to Notre Dame?
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's only a cathedral, isn't it? It's not a major...
Was it not a missed political and diplomatic opportunity?
No, I don't believe so, no. And, I mean, the fact he's going to wait for Trump to actually be president is not a bad idea, is it?
Now, listen, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? Notre Dame is only a cathedral. I don't know what they put in Paul's tea tonight, but Coulvier, I think this guy is a statesman and he does us proud.
I think focusing on Prince William, he has all those things, but we have to put it into context of what a difficult couple of years he's had as well. And, with
the Princess of Wales being so unwell, with his father being unwell. And let's be honest, he's a thoroughly modern royal. And what I mean by that is he's really put his family first, his young children.
His head there.
Well, just the idea of a modern royal. It's an ancient idea that you get a job because your dad did it.
Well,
and I think we should have moved on from that,
we
don't you
have
think?
moved on in terms of the figureheads of state. And, you know, they do bring a lot of value and people respect that. And they're thoroughly part of a modern Britain that we talked about.
He looked like Tsar Nicholas. That's what we thought.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because he does look a bit like some of his ancestors, but he's
Like
acting in a very modern way. He's hands-on. He's dropping the kids to school. He's there.
I mean, for me, it's never, ever been about the personalities and the individuals. I've met Charles. He's a very nice man. You know, nothing wrong with the individuals. It's not their fault that they're in these situations. It's the institution I'm sceptical about.
William doesn't have a boss who's saying you've got to do this number of engagements, you've got to reach out to that many charities, da-da-da. And yet he still does. So he was hobnobbing last night with world leaders, and today he's helping in a homeless charity giving out Christmas meals. And I think that embodiment
and lots of people are doing that this Christmas. Annunciata, lots of people are doing this.
It's what the British are about, but it's what the royals are
briefly,
about.
Paul, do you not accept that the royals are box office? That an elected president, perhaps, you know, somebody that was in the cabinet 10 years ago that's become UK president, would get that kind of welcome at the Elysee Palace from the president-elect of the United States?
Well, people go and visit Paris, and that hasn't had a monarchy since the 1700s.
Well, that's where they've gone wrong. Look at France. It's a basket case. Listen, Paul's on fire tonight, as is Corvir, and, of course, as is Annunciata. They're back at 10:30 for the papers. Got some great headlines coming. But first, the Great British Giveaway, and your chance to become our biggest ever winner with £50,000 in tax-free cash. What a windfall. Here's how you get your hands on it.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
What are you waiting for? You really could be our biggest winner so far. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Listen, the panel have kicked off. They're debating whether Emmanuel Macron is attractive or not. We'll get to that with the papers. I can tell you that Prince William, what a figure he was last night. But, folks, after the break, as Suella Braverman's husband sensationally defects to Reform UK, is the former Conservative Home Secretary going to follow suit? If Braverman leaves, does that sink the Tory party forever? I'll be asking politics icon Anne Widdecombe next.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Jaguar has ditched its growling big cat logo as part of what can only be described as a woke rebrand. The badge that has been used for decades, look at it, beautiful, on the bonnets of luxury cars has been swapped for a curved geometric J badge. They've also released a brand new advert, look at it, for their rebrand, which prompted Elon Musk to ask if the company actually sold cars. I thought this was a wind-up. It's not. It's true. Joining me now to discuss this is the motoring journalist Amanda Stratton. Amanda, what on earth is going on at Jaguar? The car of James Bond, Batman, Arthur Daley has gone off the scale woke. Please make me make sense of it.
The E-Type is an absolutely iconic car, and it's important
that people remember that, in fact, in its heyday, Jaguar was an incredibly prestigious brand, more so really than other British brands like Aston Martin, for example. But, you know, people in the industry are left sort of scratching their heads because you need to do something bold, you need to do something that catches people's attention, but you also need to stay true to who you are and what you are, and I'm not sure that this is it.
Amanda, that could be an advert for anything. It could be cat food. It could be Karl Lagerfeld. It could be literally anything apart from a Jag. Well, I mean, honestly, I mean, OK, we're talking about it. So we are talking about it, but we're not talking about it for the right reasons, are we?
And I think if I was going to be speculative here, I would like to think that this is actually all part of a cunning plan to get everybody talking about it. Yeah. So when they do launch the first new car that we're going to see, which, you know, people have been waiting, as I say, since 2001.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, a big reaction to the take at 10. I'll get to your messages at 10:30 with the papers. But first, the Sunday papers are reporting that the husband of Suella Braverman has defected to Reform UK. That's right, it's quite a dramatic development. So could his famous spouse, the former Home Secretary, follow suit? Let's get the views of former Conservative Government Minister and now Reform UK spokesperson Anne Widdecombe. Anne, really good to see you again. I enjoyed our ding-dong last week, but I think this will be more harmonious because I've got good news for you. Andrea Jenkins defected. The founder of Conservative Home, Tim Montgomery, defected. Now, Suella Braverman's husband, and Suella Braverman being one of the most iconic figures within the Conservative movement, defects to Reform UK. Is that what you would call momentum?
Oh, I think we've had momentum for some time. And I think it's inconceivable that Suella's husband would have gone to Reform and made it public if she herself hadn't thought, OK, you know, that's not going to damage me. And maybe the reasoning behind that is that she's waiting for the right moment to do it herself. The other reason may simply be that she isn't, but that she thinks it's a good move on his part.
Well, it's an understatement, Anne, to say that Suella Braverman is her own woman. She won't be influenced by the opinion of any man, including her own husband. I know you're cut from the same cloth. She's a principled person. She's a true Conservative. But it just seems like Reform UK is a better fit for Braverman these days, considering her recent rhetoric on immigration and the economy.
Well, Reform is the only fit for anybody who is serious about controlling particularly unlawful immigration, but about controlling immigration full stop. The other parties do not have policies. Keir Starmer's policy, as I've said before, is to smash the gangs, which is like saying smash the mafia, smash the drugs gangs, and you smash one, another one pops up. That is not going to stop the boats. So I understand completely why people would be looking at Reform and thinking, well, you know, they're the only ones around. They're the only ones actually saying what we, the public, want to hear.
Now, Anne, some time ago, in your infinite wisdom, you told me that you felt that the Conservative Party had become institutionally woke. It had shifted to the left. It's not Conservative anymore. That's why you left. Are you worried, therefore, about so many Tories joining the Reform UK fold?
No, not at all, because the ones that are joining are those who are, A, completely fed up with the mess Conservatives have made, and B, don't see any signs of a different direction in the future. And you know, that direction is so divided. There is no united Conservative purpose anymore. And I think the people who are coming to Reform are those who have the same purpose that we have. But it's also worth saying, before anybody loses sight of it, we've been getting Labour people coming over as well, but we've actually overtaken Labour in one of the polls. It's not just Tories who are coming, it is people who want to see a different sort of Britain.
And are there some Conservatives you would not welcome into Reform UK?
Oh, I don't think I'll name names of anybody that I wouldn't welcome.
Rory Stewart?
As far as what? I mean, you wouldn't want to come, would he, sir?
Dominic Grieve? David Gork? William Hague?
Oh, well, William, I think, did a very, very good and much underestimated job as leader of the opposition. But I don't think he'd be wanting to join Reform.
Now, if Braverman were to come over to Reform, it's hypothetical at this stage, Anne, what would be the implications for the Conservative Party, a party that you know intimately well?
I think it would give a lot of impetus to people who want to leave. You know this business, that people sort of look to see what other people are doing. Well, is this a step I could be taking? And if enough people do it, then it does then become a movement. And I think that the Tories will probably be very, very scared of that happening. And certainly, if Suella came over, that would really give impetus to that movement.
Now, Anne, as you know, campaigning is simple, government is complex. There used to be jokes made about the Liberal Democrats that, in their manifesto, they'd be offering sort of, free ice cream on a Tuesday, free beer on a Monday. And it was, ridiculous. The reason why their manifestos were so generous is because they weren't going to form a government. Aren't Reform UK the new Lib Dems in that sense?
God forbid that we should be anything, either old or new Lib Dems or anything remotely Lib Demish, because we're the exact opposite. And I think the reason that Reform is so attractive is that people do believe that we can do, and we would do, because we say how we're going to do it, what we say we're going to do.
Okay.
I wouldn't be quite so cynical, Mark, actually, if I were you. Yeah, we've had years of Labour and Tories saying they're going to do this, they're going to do that, jam tomorrow, we don't even get the bread and butter. We're used to that. But I think the difference with Reform is we've said how we'll do it, and I believe that we've got the will to do it.
Well, Anne, let me give you a specific example. If Reform were to form the next government, never say never, there would need to be enormous cuts in the public sector. How would that wash with many working-class voters who are enthusiastically supporting Nigel Farage?
Well, I think you'll find that working-class voters do not want a bloated public sector. They want a public sector that actually does what it's supposed to do. They don't want, for example, all the equality, diversity and inclusion posts that, absolutely bloat the civil service. They don't want the waste that goes on. And what they want is they want opportunity. That is what they want, real opportunity. That is what I think it's a bit snobbish to say the working classes. That is what ordinary people want.
Now, Anne, before we go, it is thought that there will be a mass exodus of refugees from Syria following the fall of the Assad regime. Should Britain take its fair share of Syrian refugees?
Well, first of all, you've got to ask what they'll be fleeing, what's going to be put in place of Assad, how it's going to operate. Now, OK, a lot of the opposition originated in Al-Qaeda, then became, Islamic State and all the rest of it. But until you actually know what the regime is, you cannot say, we're going to open our borders. Of course you can't. And individual people have to establish. You can't just say, there's been an upheaval in my country, so I want asylum. That's not how asylum works. You've got to show individual danger of persecution. We've lost sight of that. We've absolutely lost sight of it. And I would say of them as I would of anybody else who come into this country illegally, you have no claim for asylum.
Now, of course, you can hear Anne Widdecombe every Sunday on Mark Dolan Tonight. Anne, it's always the highlight of the weekend to have our jousts, but you can read Anne's brilliant work as well. Her brand new Substack is proving very popular. It's AnneWiddecombe.substack.com. That's right, AnneWiddecombe.substack.com. And see you for our last Mark Dolan Tonight of the year next Sunday. Thank you, Anne. Coming up, tomorrow's papers. Also, it's 28 minutes past 10. So let me tell you that I'm a Celebrity is over. It's completed. The winner has been announced. I'll give you all the details next.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After an unsettled weekend, it is still going to be windy in the south, clearer skies overnight in the north before higher pressure builds into the new week. So we still do have a squeeze in the isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds for the rest of today and into tomorrow, but higher pressure towards the north. So a cloudy picture across much of England and Wales through Monday, with brisk winds still, especially along the south coast, with some showers most frequent in the southeast. Drier across Northern Ireland and Scotland, but it will be a cold start to the day with a touch of frost in places. But that does mean a bright start across much of Scotland, with plenty of winter sunshine to start the day, perhaps even with some freezing fog patches around that may be slow to lift. Across Northern Ireland, plenty of blue sky once again, but there will be a touch of frost too, so cold start out there. Some glimmers of sunshine, especially across western areas of England and Wales, but often quite cloudy as we go through the afternoon. So there is going to be a lot of cloud around and some outbreaks of rain, especially across the south and east and across the English Channel too. But there will be some breaks in the cloud, the best of the sunshine once again across Northern Ireland and Scotland. It will be cold here though, with temperatures struggling here at around 5 or 6 degrees, but across the south holding up at around 8 or 9 degrees. So it's going to be another cold start across Northern Ireland and Scotland as we start Tuesday morning with a widespread frost. A lot of cloud across much of England and Wales. Again, thick enough just for some patchy rain and drizzle at times, but for most of us it's largely dry, and as we go through the week, higher pressure remains, but it'll be still largely cloudy with some overnight frost and fog. Bye-bye.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. OK, now some pushback at the idea of accepting Syrian refugees on the message board. gbnews.com/your say. Kate says all the settled Syrians here will be demanding the rest of their extended family be brought over. David says we've taken over 5,000 Syrian refugees already. No more. OK, folks, well, listen, I'll get to more of your thoughts and opinions in just a moment. But first, tomorrow's papers. And we start with the Daily Express. A barbaric dictator given sanctuary in Moscow. Delight in Syria as rebels force Assad to flee to Russia. Daily Star, 70-mile-an-hour Atlantic winds to cause Christmas chaos. 'Tis the season to be jolly windy. Metro now, and rebels oust Syrian despot. Assad falls, but what now? Daily Mail, special edition of the newspaper. This is a disaster for Iran, and the Ayatollahs have never been more vulnerable. The smell of regime change is in the Tehran air, writes Andrew Neil. The headline of tomorrow's Daily Mail, Assad is toppled, but is worse to come. Daily Telegraph now, Assad flees to Moscow, and commentary from Con Coughlin, who says Syrian leader was second-choice dictator who never filled father's shoes. Of course, the family controlled Syria for 5 decades. There's been a civil war going on for 13 years, but not necessarily a sunny outlook for a once great nation. OK, folks, so well, look, those are your front pages. Any news on I'm a Celebrity yet? OK, any second now. Well, look, I'm very pleased that we can bring you the latest developments on that. I think it's Colleen Rooney and someone from Busted Danny Jones from McFly. Like, all the boy bands blur into one. I only know about Elton John, who is the greatest. Listen, I'll tell you who's the greatest. Corvia Ranger, who is a Lord, a member of the House of Lords, former advisor to Boris Johnson. He's on tonight's panel. I'm also delighted to welcome from Popular Conservatism, it is Annunziata Rees-Mogg, and former very senior Labour advisor, a man with the ear of Sir Keir Starmer, it is Paul Richards. Folks, there's only one story in town, and it's events in Syria, Kulvir. It's hard to know whether this is good or bad news for the world.
Well, on the whole, I think we can all agree it's good news, because what's been going on in Syria, the kind of regime that Assad has been basically overseeing, and the way he has treated the Syrian people, we can see that that is not something anyone would...
Let me interrupt you with something far less important.
Yes.
Danny Jones has won I'm a Celebrity 2024, and I understand that Colleen Rooney was on the podium, but no gold medal. That's right, she got the second place. Colleen Rooney, second place. But number one, Danny Jones from McFly wins I'm a Celebrity 2024. There you go. Well, that's live telly, folks. So just got to make sure no one misses the action.
Yes. Well, that's another number one for that brilliant band, McFly, then, isn't it?
Well, it really is, yes. And congratulations, Tim. I'm sure there'll be a few lucrative deals off the back of it. But by the way, speaking of lucrative, Assad is now reportedly in Russia. Of course, Putin has been supporting him in his regime, and probably with a few million squirreled away in a bank account.
Well, he's going to need every penny he's probably got, because we know that Russia have been supporting Syria and Assad, particularly in his fights with the rebels, in his persecution of his own people. And now he's going to need every penny he's got to help to keep him in some kind of, asylum standard that he wants to be kept, because where is Assad's power now? And the other issue for the region is actually with Tehran and Iran, because Iran have been backing Assad and trying to ensure a certain access. And this does extrapolate into, the consequences of what happened in October 7th last year, Arab Spring. This has been a long time coming. It's been probably swinging one way or the other in terms of the support that the Syrian regime was getting from Iran, from Russia, and also economically from China. And there was a sense that how would this pan out? And we do have to look closely. And there's a fantastic analysis, it has to be said, by Andrew Neil, which I've already read in the Mail, about how these different geopolitical alignments have been behaving and what Israel's approach to the retaliation on Hamas and Hezbollah and their tenacity, which has been challenging to see, but has opened up a flank of weakness for Syria, which is what has resulted in Assad's fall down.
Well, indeed, and Paul, this looks to weaken Iran, and it's bad news for Russia too, on the face of it.
I mean, it would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if the people of Iran rose up and tore down their regime in exactly the same or similar way. But I mean, the word of warning that is running through all of these stories on the front pages is that we don't know what comes next, and the disparate forces that are currently aligned will soon start falling out. And
of course, they are predominantly Islamist in ideology.
They are Islamist in ideology. That's not the religion of Islam, but the political ideology of Islamism, which is against the West, and they're not. These are not necessarily Democrats, not necessarily our friends, and they may institute a kind of regime that we would thoroughly disapprove of. So the world is holding its breath, because it's not it's not goodies versus baddies in the sort of traditional sense.
Indeed, and Annunziata, Israel in an interesting position here, because they'll be pleased to see the back of Assad, but his replacement likely will not be supportive of the Israeli cause.
Indeed not. I mean, he was supporting terrorists attacking Israel, and they had an agreement with Russia that they could bomb certain bits within Syrian territory to defend themselves. So they will no doubt be happy that Assad's regime...
And they're now launching strikes on Syria as we speak.
They are indeed. But I think this really highlights the weakness of Russia. That they can't fight on two fronts effectively. They had to give up one of their interests in order to focus their efforts in Ukraine. And very similar for Iran, that they have been having all sorts of issues with their supporters being attacked by Israel, them attacking Israel themselves. And again, it looks as though they can't keep supporting two different fronts, which I think makes the whole area even more unstable. That they were awful powers. But when there was a stability, not too much happened. The rebels who have now taken over are from such different backgrounds. They are enemies themselves, but they've been united in fighting against Assad's regime. There isn't that enemy to fight together against any longer. And I don't know, well, no one that I have read so far seems to know where that will leave the Syrian people in a week or a year's time.
Yes, and I completely agree. But it also, I think, the one thing that it does demonstrate is that the efforts that we and all the allies have put into Ukraine, to supporting Ukraine and ensuring Ukraine can take the fight to Russia and stand its ground,
Absolutely.
has, in effect, had an impact on the Syrian situation and will continue to. And all these things are interrelated.
Because Russia were not able to support Syria to the extent they'd like, given the war in Ukraine. It was diluting Russia's efforts, wasn't it?
Yes, and they've had to pull back their troops. They've had to take, it's been a much different operation to what I'm sure President Putin anticipated in Ukraine. We know that. And he's had to now look at where his forces are going.
And I wonder if it makes Donald Trump reconsider his position of heading to peace talks and withdrawing support for Ukraine. If he will have obviously seen and digested the news of Assad's fall, but the meaning for that internationally, that if you keep Russia busy, if you keep dispowering her in Ukraine, dispiriting her spirit on the world stage, it actually could be a very, very critical moment for relations.
And Paul, the Russian economy's finally started to head south now after defying economic gravity for a couple of years.
I mean, it makes the point, doesn't it, that victory in Ukraine is ever more important, and this is not the time to take our support away as the West.
Are you concerned Trump will?
I think there's a danger here, sort of America first will take us down that route. But your point about the economy, and this is how we won the Cold War, of course, was just sort of, ensuring that their economy ultimately failed and they had to have political reform and glasnost and perestroika and all of that. It's a not dissimilar situation where, Putin's base is weak because of the economy failing. And the more pressure we can keep up, the better. And the Ukrainians must win.
I think the only problem with that, though, Paul, in this generation, is that we have a different type of economy, a more globalised economy, interchangeable supply chains. We see the implications on our own supply chains and the effects that these global wars and shocks have. And we're more susceptible to those things. Look at what's happened to inflation, energy prices, those kinds of things. We are not able to detach ourselves from some of these things. So it's really important that we do understand the relationship between these conflicts and our economic circumstances. But I think it'll be vital, as Annunziata says, where Donald Trump's views on this go now. And I think this is a really timely action in Syria because it could influence Donald Trump to understand or take a closer look at his support for Ukraine.
Well, a fascinating debate. We'll continue that, plus more front pages. And next up, when is Annunziata Rees-Mogg defecting to Reform? We'll find out next.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes, the bane of everybody that uses the road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, are even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced. and then they'll just be pothole free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of like dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Now, thanks to Bobby, we've got tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Faye, what have you got for us? We'll start with The Guardian. And rebels seize Damascus as Assad flees to Moscow. And the I newspaper, The Fall of Assad, rebels declare victory for Islamic Nation as Bashar al-Assad flees Syria and regime collapses. We do have the Times, but we're just loading it up. So, Faye, let me know when you've got it, and we'll get the newspaper of record in just a moment. But back to Colville and Annunziata and Paul, and the shock news that Suella Braverman's husband has defected to Reform UK. Is that a problem for the Conservatives, Annunziata?
Well, I don't think anyone knew who Suella Braverman's husband was until today. So I can't imagine many people are particularly worried about it. If Suella did, and she may well, it might be rather more newsworthy than her husband, who's not a politician. Suella is free to make up her own mind. I would suggest to her that the party governance that she should support in this country is the Conservatives. That the Conservatives need to be representing people with Suella's views, people who want to bring down immigration, who want strong laws to protect freedoms, historic and current. But Reform want to trash our constitution, to fundamentally change...
You mean ditch the ECHR, which is stopping us stop the boat?
Which has been suggested by many in the Conservative Party, notably Robert Jenrick during the election, the leadership campaign. But no, they want to completely reform the House of Lords, and they want to switch to PR, which would entirely change our relationship with politicians. And I think that answerability of one person, that you put your cross next to their name as an identified person, is incredibly valuable to us. We should have more powers of recall, but we shouldn't get...
Well, I agree. I'm not loving this Labour government, but I'd rather have governments with overall majorities, and PR means hung parliaments forever, which doesn't have good historic precedent. But are you worried about this brain drain from the Tories? We've got Dame Andrea Jenkins. We've got the founder of Conservative Home, the journalist Tim Montgomery. Now, Braverman's spouse. There are more to come, aren't there?
Look, no disrespect to any of those three people, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a brain drain from the political movement that is the Conservative Party.
Harsh. I mean, Dame Andrea is one of the most high-profile Conservatives in the country.
She's a wonderful, wonderful lady and spent...
And she knows how to flick a finger when called upon.
Yes, she does. But this isn't necessarily a mass movement. And I think at this point, where the Conservative Party has suffered this significant political defeat, it's gathering, it's finding its form around a new, fresh, vibrant, energetic leader that the party and the members have selected.
When are you going to get one of those?
Well, we've got one. The Kemi Badenoch
Has Kemi not been a disappointment so far?
Oh, well, she's barely arrived. How can she be a disappointment?
I'm an admirer. I backed her for the leadership, given the choice of the two. But it seems to have been a very low-key start.
What I would say is she's very new into role. And I remember whenever you see a new leader of the opposition, I remember a very young David Cameron taking on that role, it takes some time. And we have time. The Conservative Party needs to think about what it got wrong. It also needs to think about what it wants to do going forward. That's exactly what Kemi will do. She's got a lot of help and support in the Parliamentary Party. I know in the House of Lords, a lot of us will be working with her, and she's reaching out to people as well to say, come in, tell me what it is that we should do, what should we look at, policies, challenges, the values of the party that seem to have disappeared from the front page. And that's what we're going to look at. Smaller government, less taxes, getting the economy working, the things that Conservatives have always been known for. They've made it the most successful electoral party in the history of political parties, and Kemi will do that.
Paul, what do the Labour apparatchiks make of Kemi Badenoch? Are they worried?
Well, I mean, this is a sort of popcorn moment for us, just watching all the Conservatives falling out with each other and leaving and going to different parties. But what occupies the minds of strategists is that if there was some sort of pact done, even a surreptitious behind-the-scenes pact, there are lots of Labour seats where the Labour MP only got elected because Reform and the Tories split the vote. And if they did some sort of deal whereby that didn't happen, Labour would be in trouble. So, you know, keep falling out.
And what's your appraisal of
Kemi
Badenoch so far?
Well, I said at the time, she's not all that. And I think that Starmer is outwitting her every week at Prime Minister's questions.
He's won PMQs every time so
Every
far.
single time. And I think that's because she hasn't quite got the politics, you know, underneath this. And you have to perform well in the House as well as in the country. And she's not. So, yeah, he's making mincemeat of her week after week.
Are we being a bit harsh on Kemi Badenoch? Margaret Thatcher was a shrill and inexperienced politician when she led the Tories in 1975.
Or she had to have voice coaching because she was so high-pitched no one would listen to her.
And the party had no faith in her right up until, I think, 78.
Yeah. And she turned it around. And I think Kemi Badenoch, it is very early days.
She's not Mrs Thatcher, though, is she?
She might well turn out to be. But she made it very clear in her leadership campaign that her platform was to fight on values and principles and for policy to be thought about carefully to come as the next step. And we quite clearly haven't got there yet, just 5 months afterwards. But the Conservatives cannot fall into the trap Labour did whilst in opposition for 14 years. And at the end of it, your policies make no sense, there's no coherent vision, they compete against each other and the whole thing falls apart. The Conservatives have got to take this opportunity to have serious concrete policies that could be enacted.
Are you comfortable with Kemi's slowly catchy monkey strategy then?
I'm an incredibly impatient person and I would love her to really be getting Keir Starmer by the throat every week by inspiring us all with strong policy announcements now. But I also recognise they've got to be the right announcements. They've got to be the right policies that will actually help people's lives when there is an election.
But I think we've also got to let this new government and Labour do what they want to do and demonstrate what they're about, which they have done in this last 5 months. They've alienated the pensioners, they've given money to all their public sector
workers. Given money to the health service.
Well, everybody gives money to the health service. Let's be honest, the Conservatives give money, Labour gives money, it still doesn't work. We thought we were going to get a reform.
We've nationalised the railways.
Well, let's see how that works out. So let's see what Labour do, and then we'll take that. Yeah, we'll take it to them, because that's what the leader of the opposition's job is, to hold the government to account. And I think she'll do that.
Let me hold you to
it's already
account.
caused Labour to reset as well.
Fair enough. You're both Conservatives, so can you categorically rule out joining Reform UK before the election, Kulveer?
As in individually? Yes, I can.
All right. Annunziata, can you rule out defecting to Reform UK before the next election?
I left the Conservatives to join the Brexit Party to get Brexit done. I returned to the Conservatives as soon as Boris Johnson was elected, before he was elected, in order to do so. I think flip-flopping more than once would be disreputable. I'll be sticking with the Tories.
Brilliant. Paul, can you joining Reform UK? No, that for you would be the Lib Dems, wouldn't it?
I'm not joining the Lib Dems or anybody else. I've got my 40-odd years in. I'm not going anywhere.
Listen, that's it. Well, fascinating stuff. Starmer, by the way, the reboots. I mean,
It's not a reboot. It was just a refocusing.
Milestones.
You wouldn't have signed off that rather dreary speech, would you?
It was a perfectly decent speech, but the underlying policy, much better. Great stuff.
There you go. Look, folks, thank you so much for that. Headliners is next, and in the hot seat, it's Steve N. Allen. It's wrong to have favourites. Steve's one of them. How are you, Steve?
One of them. I thought for a minute there, I thought I was going to get something. Yeah, thanks. It's just like my parents did. Well, it's me, it's Josh, it's Nick. We're sorting out all the news. We've got the Assad story, which might be a happy story. We'll find out, won't we? We'll be talking about the standard of immigration decisions. Apparently that's dropped. Now they have 3 settings, approve, deny and whatevs. That's not helping the system. The end of NIMBYs. There's a chance you might be yes in my backyard, but I don't like it, which is the Yimby Bidley. Looked at that. And digital IDs, will you be forced to have them? You'll find out. All on the way.
Thank you, Steve. Look forward to the show. Thank you to Faye, Jack. Who else have we got? Eva and James and Harvey on digital, and most importantly, Bobby. You don't forget Bobby, by the way, and my amazing pundits. Annunciata, Corvir and Paul. I'm back on Friday at 8. See you then.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After an unsettled weekend, it is still going to be windy in the south, clearer skies overnight in the north before higher pressure builds into the new week. So we still do have a squeeze in the isobars, indicating some strong and gusty winds for the rest of today and into tomorrow, but higher pressure towards the north. So a cloudy picture across much of England and Wales through Monday, with brisk winds still, especially along the south coast, with some showers most frequent in the southeast. Drier across Northern Ireland and Scotland, but it will be a cold start to the day with a touch of frost in places. But that does mean a bright start across much of Scotland with plenty of winter sunshine